Should you buy a PS5 Pro or not? The decision process is very simple. Intrigued by this video, not seen it before on my reaction videos are first time watchers. To make it more authentic, let's see what they say. This is a Digital Foundry.
Even after all the great journalism and reporting from the PS5 Pro event, I see tons of comments about how someone doesn't see any difference, complaining about how you quote-unquote need a developer to show you all the differences because they're so minor, and how PS5 Pro is a waste of money. I feel the simplest answer to the question, why should I buy a PS5 Pro, is image quality. The PS5 Pro plays PS5 games with a PC level of image quality, and that's about it. If you can't see FSR2 disocclusion fizzle, don't buy a PS5 Pro.
I'm just going to go back to that last bit. This is obviously someone anti PS5 Pro with this comment immediately. That's pretty clear. Where it says the PS5 Pro plays PS5 games with a PC level of image quality, and that's about it. If you forget about things like Wi-Fi 7, if you forget about the more than 2 times SSD storage, if you forget about PSSR, if you forget about Game Boost, if you forget about, say, brand new console with entirely brand new parts and more things besides. If you forget about all that there, it's yeah, that's about it. If you forget about all those things. Oh dear. Let's hope they don't sit on the fence and be honest about this, because too many people sit on the fence on this kind of thing and don't really say their honest opinion.
Is image quality. The PS5 Pro plays PS5 games with a PC level of image quality, and that's about it. If you can't see FSR2 disocclusion fizzle, don't buy a PS5 Pro. If you don't see anything wrong with the image of your PS5, don't buy a PS5 Pro. Do you guys agree? What's your buying advice for a prospective PS5 Pro purchase?
I'm just going to jump in there quick, because if you don't see anything wrong with the image quality of your PS5 standard, don't buy a Pro. I find that a really weird thing to say, because if you go, everything's relative basically. If you go back to the days of the Mega Drive or Genesis or Super Nintendo, and you looked at it then for a decent TV at the time, so a RGB SCART lead, and there was nothing wrong with the image quality of that, because that was the standard at the time. That was state of the art at the time. That was like really good for consoles. That was, you know, fantastic. People loved it, thought it looked fantastic. But as things progressed and moved on to, say, the Xbox 360 and PS3 era, where we got like 1080p graphics and HD, at the time you couldn't think, didn't think things could look any better. That was, it's marvelous. This literally cannot look any sharper. This cannot look any clearer. But as we progress to 4K, more graphical effects, things move on, and the image does get better. So it's kind of all about image quality. I find that was a really weird thing to say. Yeah, PC owners all the time changing their graphics cards just to get improved image quality. The clue's in the title, graphics. This is a PC fan sort of moaning about the PS5 Pro, probably a bit disgruntled that it's very good for the money. But let's just have a little listen.
Don't buy a PS5 Pro. Do you guys agree? What's your buying advice for a prospective PS5 Pro purchase? I'm going to go to you on this one, Oliver, since you've actually seen the PS5 Pro and can give your opinion on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think Sony is in a weird place where they need to balance making the PS5 Pro look good and making the PS5 look bad. Like, you have a difficult situation there with your installed base of 60 million consoles, and you also have an issue with your third-party partners, or maybe they don't want to show off titles so much with poor image quality in the PS5.
Never actually thought of it from that angle before, and that is actually a really, really good point. With 60 million PS5 consoles out there, if you show off the PS5 Pro as good as you possibly can, this is Sony I'm talking about here, then you make the PS5 look bad. A lot of people don't get that 4 years is a long time in technology. 4 years, things move on pretty quickly, and you've got to expect things to improve. If you show the PS5 Pro its max level, straight away you've got 60 million people saying, oh my god, this is what the PS5 Pro with the PS5 base should have been. But it wasn't possible back then, not for that money anyway. But conversely, if you do it the other way around, which is probably what happened, they're not showing it off enough in certain ways, particularly the ray tracing. We haven't seen a ton of that They've been, a lot of people have been focusing more about the sharpness improvements and things like that. But by not showing it off enough, people are saying, oh, there's no difference between the Pro and the PS5. Yeah, they're caught between a rock and a hard place. Pretty difficult to win, really.
More image quality in the PS5 console and great image quality on the Pro. That's maybe not something that third parties want to do. And then your first party stable is mostly pretty good, although there are some like exclusive titles like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that maybe aren't so great in terms of image quality. Another one I think of actually is Helldivers 2. That's also like a 1080p 60 title, or aiming for 1080p 60 on the base PS5. Mm-hmm. So there are definitely some games they could have picked from. Obviously Final Fantasy is kind of like one of the standouts there, but in any case, they've chosen not to do that, and I understand why. For the most part, they've elected to keep those comparisons fairly simple and actually left some of the more meaty ones to us at the moment in our various pieces of coverage. But I totally agree with this questioner in the sense that if you aren't bothered by PS5 image quality, then don't get a Pro. If you are bothered by PS5 image quality, then consider it. I think that's a perfectly sensible thing to do.
I think that's Oliver sitting on the fence big time, and try not to upset anybody, because it's Digital Foundry. They've got to try and appear neutral. They don't want to upset any side of the user base. So he's kind of sitting on the fence there. But no, I don't agree with that at all. I think, I agree with it in the sense of if you are happy with the PS5 as it is now, then there is no need to move to a Pro. Of course not. Especially if you've got a 1080p TV. For the people that've got a 4K HDMI 2.1 TV, like I've got a HDMI 2.1 capable OLED TV, so I can benefit from the 120 frames a second games and things like that, and all those graphical things that the PS5 Pro can do, as well as the PS5 to an extent, going to look absolutely cracking. You're going to see more of that benefit if you've got a shootable TV at the same time. If you've got a 1080p TV, it's not worth it as much. It's still some added benefits, of course, due to the larger SSD, Wi-Fi 7, game boost and PSSR, things like that, but you're still not going to get as much benefit from it unless you've got a capable TV at the same time. Oliver's, he's seriously sitting on the fence there. He's just trying to not upset people because it's all about image quality. PC users buy graphics cards all the time just to get basically improved image quality with some more graphical effects. This is what the PS5 Pro is. I want somebody to actually stand up and be bold enough to say it, even on Digital Foundry. Come on, stop sitting on the fence.
Image quality, then consider it. I think that's a perfectly sensible thing to do. And I think there are a lot of PS5 games that look good on 4K screens, normal viewing distances, even at 60 FPS. Image breakup isn't too bad, and at that increased distance from the screen, 1440p can still look pretty good. Does not look too soft, does not look too bad, too blurry there. So I think it's going to depend on the person, depend on what kind of games you like to play, and depend on individual sensitivities to issues like this person mentions, like disocclusion fizzle and things like this that are kind of inherent to FSR2 in particular.
Basically, if you've got your PS5 now, and you can switch between performance and fidelity modes and be hot and be happy with either setting, and you're good with that, then you don't need to buy a PS5 Pro unless you really benefit from a lot of the other things like the bigger SSD and things like that. If you're one of the people, a bit like me, that I prefer the performance mode, but I can really see the difference between the performance mode and the fidelity mode, and the Pro gives me both of them things at once, then for me that is a massive benefit. So yeah, absolutely, each to their own on it, but it'll be suitable for some people but not for others. Absolutely, definitely.
FSR2 in particular.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Alex?
I agree with everything Oliver said. Just as a part of this, though, I would also be curious. I wish, I think Sony did mention how many people were choosing performance modes.
70%.
I would also love to know
like
from Sony
75%.
I would also love to know from Sony how many people are using 4K displays versus 1080p displays versus monitors that do, because the PS5 also supports monitors to a good degree these days, like 1440p ones. I'd be curious to know those statistics too, because I've always wondered a bit how many people actually have a 4K television hooked up to their consoles ever since around PS4 Pro came around. That's a statistics I have no.
I think most people buying a Pro will definitely have a 4K telly. A lot of people that are anti PS5 Pro or saying they can't see the difference and things like that have probably got a 1080p TV and therefore going to be perfectly happy with their PS5. And it's perfectly good. I've said it from day one. The PS5 Pro is not for everybody. It's for the enthusiast or the gaming fan that just wants the very best out of this generation and can afford to do so. It's like, yeah, it's an expensive luxury, but there's loads of things in life of an expensive luxury. It doesn't mean say they're not worth having.
That's a statistics I have no access to, and I'd be curious to see if that is also one of the reasons why people are just not seeing things that I see. So yeah, maybe that's one reason.
Well, I think part of the reason is that, obviously nobody has really seen the PlayStation 5 Pro yet, and all they've got to go on is media that's available on an inherently compromised video delivery platform.
Yes.
So we try our best to overcome those compromises. Then there's the fact that, ultimately we do know that a majority of the people watching our content are doing so on mobile devices, which makes it even more difficult for us to show the differences.
Something like 70% of people watch videos like this on a mobile phone. So it's a mobile phone which is already 5.7 inches approx, something like that. And then normally on a split screen, so you've got half that again. Limited amount of pixels because it's a 5.7 inch screen in the first place, halved. And people saying, well, I can't see the difference. Well, of course not. Even if it was on a 65 inch TV, it won't look as good as in real life. It's a massively compressed image quality you're looking at. That's why they use the zoom feature. They zoom in. And people say, if you have to zoom to show it off, then it's no good. But they're zooming in because it's a compressed format to try and make the differences more obvious. When you play the game side by side in real life versus a normal PS5, a lot of these differences which look negligible on a video on YouTube are going to look massively bigger. So much more obvious in real life than the things in front of you. And that's what people, I think, need to get a grasp of a bit more.
Difficult for us to show the differences. I think, based on what I've seen, you kind of have to be in the presence of a large flat screen TV to be able to tell the differences, which is what Sony did with its presentation that you went to, Oliver. They had the side by sides, right, where you could actually see the base machine and the Pros side by side. And there are games where it is just very, very easy to spot the difference. Which one do you want? Well, if you want the one that looks better, you're going to be paying a little bit extra for it. This argument is quite interesting from my perspective because it's kind of like, if people can't tell the difference between the presentation from one piece of hardware and then another that's got a much bigger GPU or capable of much bigger, much greater image quality, then why would there be, why do people buy more expensive graphics cards?
Exactly. This is what I've said before. PC users do this all the time. PC users will happily drop £700 or dollars on a new graphics card just to get that next level of image quality. This is no different to what the Pro's doing, but you get a lot of added benefits like the bigger SSD as well as that. Like the benefits on the graphical image quality side are going to be very, very noticeable to the people that have got a relevant TV, like a 4K TV. And they've still got the PS5 available to sell if they want to say sell their base PS5. This is no different to a PC owner changing over that graphics card for a more expensive one and selling the old one.
Then why would there be, why do people buy more expensive graphics cards? They buy them because they get more value from them, and they get more value from them from increased frame rates and image quality and features, which is exactly what the Pro is doing. Now, I can recognize entirely that in the console space there may not be that level of discernment, but at the same time, in the PC space, the audience is huge. NVIDIA is selling millions of GPUs, so I don't really buy it. To be honest, I think.
Well done, Rich. He did not sit on the fence like the other two did. He doesn't really buy it, as in doesn't really buy this about the image quality thing on the thing at the beginning of the video, because it's all about image quality.
NVIDIA is selling millions of GPUs, so I don't really buy it. to be honest. I think ultimately the base PlayStation 4 is what you would call good. The Pro is better. That's the way it works.
Did he say PS4 again? Somebody had an issue with this the other day on Digital Foundry saying PS4 all the time when they meant to say PS5. But I think he said PS4 again. Must be a Digital Foundry habit.
The base PlayStation 4 is what you would call good. The Pro is better.
Yes. That's actually it in a nutshell, in a way. Like, I think of it like this. 4 years ago, the PS5 would have been classed as the better version. It was the better version of the PS4 Pro. It was a brand new console. It was doing everything better. It was a massive, massive improvement. So it would have been classed as the best at the time. It was like, fantastic when it came out like 4 years ago. But things move on. And this is 4 years later now. And with the PS5 Pro coming out 4 years later, it is clearly better with a load of other extra benefits at the same time, like the larger SSD and things like that. So if you want better, you buy it. If you're happy with what has just become good, now then stick to the PS5. No one's forcing anybody to buy anything. This is like an option out there for the people that want better. So I really don't understand some of the grumbling.
I think ultimately the base PlayStation 4 is what you would call good. The Pro is better. That's the way it works. And you pay extra for better. It's that simple. Nobody's saying to you, you've got to buy a PlayStation 5 Pro.
There you go.
Ultimately, it's down to the user to make an individual sort of choice as to what they want. It really is that simple. Any final words on that one before we move on?
I guess the only one thing that I would love to see is, and maybe it's just not possible, but like NVIDIA gets away with some of this too because they can throw out like, you're going to get path traced Indiana Jones. You're going to get path traced Cyberpunk. And those things are honestly more obvious from a visual perspective, even just side by sides without zooming and things like that. And I just think that was why I said originally when we talked about the initial presentation from Mark Cerny, which was more probably just him inserted into some sort of advertising video, but where it could have shown off like transformational differences due to ray tracing as part of the presentation, a lot more of it. And I think that is one thing that shows up without zooms in a YouTube video. So maybe that's...
I did think that. And I did think all these comparisons are mainly showing improvements in sharpness and things like that. Are kind of only showing a small difference of the improvements. It's like you said there, if they showed the ray tracing more, then a lot of people would have thought that's a better benefit because the ray tracing is much more obvious. The PS5 Pro can do 3 different types of ray tracing, and when you see all them at once in the same scene as a base PS5, that is going to be far more noticeable on screen, even on a compressed video, without the need for zooms and things like that. Because a lot of people say, well, if you have to zoom to show the benefits, it can't be worth it. But the only reason there's zooming is to basically try and combat the effect of the compression of a channel like YouTube, which just kills the image quality. When the same image is going to be on a screen in front of you without any compression, it's going to be night and day difference. It's going to be like a big, big difference, much more noticeable than on the screen. So if they'd showed ray tracing more, that would have been a much, much better thing to show in a way. But at the same time, I might go back to that early stage of this video where they're going on about they don't want to make the PS5 look too bad compared to a Pro, because you've got 60 million PS5 users out there, 60 million users out there, and that basically you don't want to upset at the same time. But it's like upsetting the PS5 Pro owners when a PS6 comes out a few years after now. It's like, it's progression. It's going to happen. Either buy it or don't. The end. If you don't want it, you don't have to.
One thing that shows up without zooms in a YouTube video. So maybe that's one thing I would prefer they show in the future too.
Like with F124, where it's like, yeah, that is a pretty different looking title.
Yeah, like you showed the the with and without in the beginning of the track area, and it's like all glowy and weird on the base, and it's like actually has proper occlusion, on the Pro. Like those are things that I can see so easily, and I think Tom, Dick, or Harry, whoever they are, they can also see it.
Okay. Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, okay. I think there's something else to add into the discussion as well on the PC side, which is that, everybody was doing their PC builds that cost the same as a PlayStation 5 Pro, when, maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
They didn't.
But, we've got this new generation of GPUs coming from NVIDIA. Inevitably, price versus performance is going to shift even more towards the PC at that point. It kind of has to, otherwise 50 series is dead in the water, really. So yeah, that's going to be interesting in terms of this kind of gradual moving together of console and PC pricing.
Interesting. So I was quite pleased that Richard on that one actually didn't sit on the fence as much as the other two, and basically said that he's not buying the excuse about if it's just image quality sort of thing, whatever it was, then if you're happy with the image quality of the PS5, there's no need to buy a Pro. In that case, no PC owners would ever upgrade their graphics card, and that happens all the time. So I don't really buy that side of the argument either. Basically, for me, it's as simple as this. If you play your PS5 and you're quite happy with the fidelity mode or the performance mode, and you can switch between the two depending upon what you want for that given game, the extra graphics or the smoother performance on performance mode, if you're happy with that, stick to the PS5. If you're like me and you see the fidelity mode and you see how sharp and cleaner and nicer it looks, and then you switch to the smoothness mode or performance mode and you get that much smoother graphics but a really big cost of graphic fidelity sometimes, and you kind of want the best of both worlds, because I'm playing on a 65-inch OLED TV. Those differences are very, very noticeable on that TV, and the Pro gives me both of those things at once. So for me, that's almost worth it on its own for the type of games that I play and how often I play and things like that. So the fact I get both those things at once, and the other benefits of a Pro, such as the larger SSD, the thing that really winds me up about the PS5 is that tiny storage capacity. If you play some big games and things like that, and you have to shift games between the external and the internal memory sometimes, things like that, backwards and forward, it's a bit of a pain. So that 2 terabyte drive really is useful for that. Obviously you can add an extra terabyte or more to the PS5 if you want to as well, but I chose not to do that on my one. But the fact that it's with the PS5 Pro as standard is really cool, and all the other benefits like PSSR and Game Boost and the Wi-Fi 7 things like that are an added bonus. So if you're content with the PS5, no need to buy a Pro. Save your money, wait for the 6 or whatever. Absolutely fantastic. But if you're one of them people that can afford the extra outlay and want to benefit from the very best that this generation has to offer, then the Pro is a very good purchase, I think, and I'm looking forward to mine. So there's the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to bash that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you again in the next one. Bye for now.